There's a hidden rule in the game of female attraction that isn't discussed in social circles, isn't explained in schools, and it is definitely not confessed by women themselves. A woman will only go to bed with a man who offers the right lie, not the dirty, low, or manipulative lie, but the lie that protects her ego from the internal judgment she herself carries. The lie that authorizes desire without guilt, that transforms an impulse into romance, a night into destiny, and sex into a consequence, not an objective. This has a name, the anti-slut system. Yes, it's grotesque, but it's real. It's the mental mechanism that tells a woman, you may really want this guy, but you can't seem easy, vulgar, or willing. That's why she backs away. That's why she demands signs of respect, context, and emotional accident. What she wants, and perhaps doesn't even realize, is a narrative. A story in which she can portray herself as a noble character, not as an accomplice to a thoughtless act. And the man who understands this, the man who offers the perfect emotional excuse, that man doesn't force, doesn't insist, doesn't beg. He leads. He offers the fantasy in just the right measure. And that's why he's the one who sleeps with her at the end of the story. The problem is that many men still live under the illusion that sincerity is enough. That simply being a nice guy is enough to win someone over. Showing everything you feel right away is seen as proof of maturity. But that doesn't excite. That doesn't stir primal instincts. That doesn't build tension. As Ortega y Gasset said, what exists in love is surrender due to fascination. Not to logic. Not to transparency. Fascination is born from doubt, from interpretation, from the mystery that allows desire to grow safely. And that's where the paradox lies. The more you try to prove you're trustworthy, the more she feels you're trying to convince her. And the more you try to convince her, the more she distrusts your energy. In the end, you seem desperate. This is the fatal mistake of the man who believes in pure love, in complete surrender, in immediate connection. He doesn't understand that connection needs layers of tension and relief, of silence and suggestion. He acts as if the feminine world were binary. Either she wants it or she doesn't. But desire doesn't work that way. Desire needs to be fueled by unpredictability, by ambiguous energy, by the invisible game of does he like me? Why doesn't he insist more? What does he really want? It is in this space of doubt that interest flourishes. Not because she is unstable, but because desire is. Feminine desire, above all, is affected by non-linear emotional stimuli. When you say, I think you're incredible, I want something serious with you, I respect you, I admire you, I'm getting to know you with the intention of a future. You seem perfect, but perfection, for a woman, doesn't generate passion. It generates comparison. And she starts to think, does he say that to everyone? Isn't he idealizing too much? Is he desperate? What you call truth, she interprets as insecurity, disguised as good intentions. And that's why she distances herself. Not because you were bad, but because you were good, too soon. And what comes without challenge, without friction, without nuances, doesn't seem real. It seems like neediness disguised as romance. She starts to question herself. Why is this guy so available if he doesn't even know me properly? Her brain, shaped by emotional and social survival, seeks a threat. And the threat there is clear. You might be too needy. You might be emotionally fragile. Or worse, you might be so used to receiving nothing that you offer everything for free. This is where the psychology of perceived value comes in. Human beings, in all contexts, market, relationships, friendships, tend to value what is scarce, selective, and progressive. Anything handed to you on a silver platter is instinctively devalued. And with women, this is amplified, because their emotional system has been shaped over centuries by a dilemma: the fear of social judgment and the desire for physical surrender. This dilemma has created layers of defense, and the man who doesn't understand these layers, who tries to enter directly through the front door, without code, without subtlety, without tension, ends up being blocked. You've seen this happen. The woman who says, "You're amazing, but I'm going through a difficult time." Or, "You're the kind of guy I'd like to date, but I'm not ready right now." Translation? You were too nice. You gave your soul before arousing the body. You touched the heart before igniting desire. And this reversed the natural order of female arousal. The body first becomes restless, then the mind surrenders. It's painful, but true. The man who says everything he feels, who demonstrates all his interest at once, who lays down his emotional game without creating suspense, becomes emotionally irrelevant. And it doesn't matter how good his intentions are, because attraction doesn't recognize intentions. It responds to tension, risk, and emotional narrative. The good man, who doesn't understand this, ends up becoming, ironically, the man of boredom. The right guy at the wrong time. The husband who never became a lover. But it's not about becoming a cold manipulator. It's about mastering the timing of seduction. About knowing how to dose what you show, when you show it, and why. Because the truth has weight. And if it's delivered without emotional preparation, it drowns out curiosity. Seduction is about dropping clues, not truths. It's about provoking questions, not giving answers. It's about awakening sensations, not explaining intentions. Imagine a movie that begins by revealing the ending, or a book that gives away the conclusion on the back cover. That's what you do when you try to be the honest man from the start. You destroy the plot before it even begins. What captivates is not what is said, but what is hidden, what is suggested, what is left in the air, and more. When you show everything at once, you take away her pleasure of conquest. Yes, because women also want to conquer. They also want to feel that they seduced you, that they won you over, that they attracted you. And if you've already given yourself before she even makes a move, there's no conquest, only giving. And every unsolicited giving is perceived as neediness. Therefore, the man who wants to be desired needs to abandon the idea of premature sincerity. He needs to understand that it's not about lying, it's about acting, not to deceive, but to stimulate. Mystery is the setting where a woman allows herself to imagine, and imagination is the fuel of desire. This is the first deep cut we need to make. A man who is too honest, too soon, is perceived as emotionally fragile. And even if she says she wants a sensitive man, she's talking about mature sensitivity, not anxious emotional transparency. If you want to be the man she desires, you need to be the man she has to decipher. The man she looks at and thinks, who is he really? Why does he intrigue me so much? Why doesn't he give himself like the others? That's the power of emotional magnetism. That's the first step to getting into her mind, not giving everything, but giving enough so that she asks for more. She sits with her friends at the bar and repeats the same phrase. I want a sincere guy, someone who treats me well, who tells the truth, who doesn't play games. Everyone around agrees. It seems sensible, it seems mature, it seems honest. But what nobody says, what nobody wants to say, is that this phrase is a lie. Not out of malice, but because she herself believes it. And yet, this belief doesn't survive the first contact with a man who knows how to play the invisible game of attraction. She swears she wants transparency, but she surrenders to the mystery. This is the emotional paradox that few men understand, and many pay the price of frustration for it. The woman says she wants truth, but her body responds to the emotional tension of a man who doesn't give everything, who provokes, instigates, frustrates, and seduces her, who offers small doses of truth mixed with generous doses of fantasy. And it is this mixture that ignites desire, not the excess of sincerity. This isn't internet theory, it's psychological structure. And it has a name, the anti-slut system. It may sound rude, even vulgar, but it's one of the most important keys to understanding the female mind. It's the unconscious mechanism that tells her you can want it, but it can't seem like you wanted it. The desire exists, but it needs to be camouflaged. She needs to feel that she was carried away, that she was involved, that sex was an inevitable consequence, not a conscious decision. Because consciousness activates judgment, and judgment awakens guilt. A woman wants to feel, but she doesn't want to seem easy. She wants to surrender, but she doesn't want to feel used. She wants to be desired, but she needs a story that justifies this desire, an emotional excuse. A plot where she wasn't complicit in her own lust, but a victim of an irresistible atmosphere. And the man who understands this masters a power that transcends beauty, money, or fame. The power to liberate female desire without activating her guilt. This is where the myth of sincerity crumbles, because the naked truth, told before the right time, exposes too much. It puts a spotlight on male intention, and in doing so, it pressures the woman to choose consciously. And consciousness demands a price. She begins to question whether what she is about to do is right or wrong. And when desire is judged, it loses strength. Not because she doesn't want it, but because she can no longer deny that she wants it. And this recognition kills the illusion that fueled the desire. Therefore, the lie, or rather the symbolic narrative, is not a dirty trick. It's a bridge between impulse and permission, between what she feels and what she needs to believe to act without guilt. It's what allows her to say to herself, "I didn't go there to have sex, I went to have dinner. I didn't come to stay, I came to watch the series. It didn't happen because I wanted it, it just happened." And this emotional excuse is what differentiates a hesitant yes from an irresistible yes. Want an example? Think of the guy who invites a woman straight to his house, without context. She refuses, says it's not like that she needs time. Now think of the guy who invites her for dinner at his place, saying he'll prepare her favorite dish, which he heard her mention in a previous conversation. Same house, same setting. But now there's a story, a pretext, a ritual. She can allow herself to be there because she has a noble reason to be there. She went for the food. The sex? It happened, like someone who accidentally slips but was already wearing heels by the pool. And this isn't about deception, it's about relief. Because the woman doesn't want to be punished for wanting, she wants to be celebrated for being led. She wants to feel that desire overflowed, that she couldn't avoid it. And for that, she needs a script. An emotional theater that protects her from herself. Nietzsche said, "What is done out of love is always beyond good and evil." But the problem is that women in the real world still live under the gaze of moral judgment. From society, from friends, from her own mother, but mainly from her own mirror. And that mirror exacts a high price when she seems too surrendered, too soon. That's why she needs the narrative, to preserve herself, to maintain symbolic control, to appear to have yielded, even when she was already surrendered before leaving home. This is the invisible theater that the man needs to stage, and not with dirty manipulation, but with emotional intelligence. You need to build atmospheres, contexts, stories. You need to discover what she likes to eat, to watch, to do. You need to transform this information into invitations that seem to be about something but are about her. You need to lead her into intimate territory without ever directly talking about sex. Because sex should not be the stated objective, it should be the inevitable consequence. How do you do this? With small movements, with ambiguous phrases, with symbolic invitations, with gentle provocations, with confident postures, with smiles that say more than words, with gestures that suggest without stating. It's a game of insinuation, not argumentation. It's the dance between maybe and who knows. And the more she floats in this comfortable uncertainty, the more her body prepares for a yes. Because desire isn't logical, it's emotional, it's narrative. And the man's role is to be the author of the plot where she feels free to desire. When you understand this, everything changes. You stop being offended when she refuses a direct invitation. You stop thinking that all women are difficult. You stop believing the problem is with you. And you begin to see that the problem was the lack of a script, the absence of atmosphere, the scarcity of symbolism. You were playing with transparency when the game called for subtlety. And here's the cruelest detail. Even if she knew everything, even if she knew you were using her favorite dish as an excuse to take her to bed, she would still go. Because the lie doesn't need to be believable, it needs to be comfortable. And if she can believe for 5 seconds that she's there for the food, not the sex, that's enough for desire to gain authorization. The rational mind relaxes, guilt silences, and the body acts. This is the invisible battlefield where men are losing the war every day. They talk too much, they explain too much, they plead too much, when in reality, all it would take is offering the right excuse. All it would take is putting on a background series. All it would take is remembering the taste of her childhood. All it would take is creating an environment where desire didn't seem like a choice, but chance. Therefore, the man who insists on being direct needs to understand that he's not being sincere. He's being emotionally stupid, because he's forcing her conscience to decide with judgment. And when that happens, she retreats, even wanting to, even liking it, even ready. Because desire doesn't survive under the spotlight. It needs twilight, veils, half-truths. Now, if you still believe that this is manipulation, that this is ugly, that this is wrong, then you're still trapped in the myth of sincerity as an absolute virtue. You still haven't understood that seduction is a symbolic art. That a woman wants to be led, not pushed. She wants to feel, not be convinced. And that, in the end, she'll go to bed with the one who builds a story where her desire is legitimate, not shameful. And this story begins before the invitation. It begins with your posture, your gaze, the way you listen to her, how you provoke, how you suggest, how you guide. Every detail is a line in the script that will lead her to you. Without guilt, without fear, without judgment. Because she won't be sleeping with just any man. She'll be living a story, the story you told. Even if she doesn't realize that's all she wanted from the beginning. But this story needs an author. And that author can't be the guy who emotionally bears himself in the first conversation. Nor the guy who begs for dates. Nor the one who sends long texts in the middle of the night, trying to explain why she should give him a chance. This author is the man who understands that desire is fragility, and that all fragility needs to be embraced by a lie that protects. Therefore, the right lie isn't a sin, it's freedom. It's what separates desire from shame. It's what allows a woman to say yes without seeming like she meant yes. It's what transforms sex into a story, and the story into a memory. And that's exactly why, when you understand this structure, you stop being the guy who hears you're too cool, and become the guy she can't forget. Now that you understand how her desire depends on the story you build, you're ready for the most brutal twist in this lesson. Because a lie, when well applied, isn't just a tactic for getting closer. It's a tool for emotional arousal, and whoever knows how to use it dominates the most intimate battlefield of the female mind. No matter how clear the invitation, the touch, the atmosphere, no matter how excited, prepared, and available they both are. When the moment arrives, when the bedroom door closes, when the lights dim, there is one last barrier between desire and action. And that barrier is within her. It's invisible, but powerful. It's the voice that whispers, "Are you really going to do this? Are you going to give in now? Are you going to be just another one?" And if that voice isn't silenced by the right story, she recoils, she freezes, or worse, she gives in and blames herself. This is the brutal truth that most men ignore. A woman's desire needs to be protected by an illusion, and that illusion is called an emotional narrative. It's the symbolic script that allows her to transform the impulse into something poetic. That makes her believe it wasn't an impulse, that there was a greater reason, a noble reason, a beautiful enough excuse to free her from the guilt that society and her own mind has programmed her with over the years. And that's exactly why she needs to believe the story, even if it's false, even if it's superficial, even if it's fragile. It's not about truth, it's about emotional comfort. About internal permissiveness, about the dose of self-deception necessary to allow herself to live what the body has already decided before the mind. And the man who understands this, who masters this psychic architecture, becomes dangerous. Because he doesn't force, doesn't beg, doesn't seduce with words, he offers atmosphere. And the atmosphere is the true aphrodisiac. The woman who goes to his house to eat a special dish knows what's behind it. But she needs this excuse. She wants this excuse because she can't tell herself or her friends that she went to have sex. She needs to say she was surprised, that he made dinner, that there was an unexpected connection, that she doesn't know what happened. And this symbolic lie cleanses the guilt, transforms sex into destiny, into magic, into it was meant to be. And if you still haven't grasped the power of this, consider how eroticism has been culturally constructed. From ancient romances to Hollywood screenplays, the woman is never the predator. She is the conquered, the led, the surrendered. The script needs to show that she resisted, that she had doubts, that she hesitated, that she tried to maintain control, and only then did she surrender. It is this ritual that allows her to maintain her emotional integrity and social reputation. It is this performance that sustains desire without triggering shame. That's why the overly direct man loses, because he unmasks the act. He shines a harsh light on what should be shrouded in symbolic shadow. He makes it seem like she wanted it, that she was easy, that she offered herself, and that destroys the charm. Because it wasn't him who seduced her, it was she who decided. And that perception is intolerable to the female ego. Have you ever noticed how they tell the stories of their encounters? It's never, "I went there and had sex." It's always, "We were talking, then there was a vibe, then he surprised me, and when I saw it happened." It always happened. It was never chosen. It was never calculated. It was never planned. That's the necessary lie. And you're the one who needs to offer it. And it doesn't have to be a big farce. It just needs to be a symbolic excuse, an emotional pretext. It could be the movie you promised to see together. It could be the glass of wine that turned into two. It could be the book she forgot and had to get. It could be your mother's dessert. It could be anything, as long as it seems innocent. Do you understand now why the guy who lied about his mother's truffle succeeded? It wasn't the truffle. It was the script. He created a reason, an emotional hook, a plot that justified the visit, and she accepted because she needed that script to not feel guilty. Because the desire already existed, it just lacked the symbolic authorization to manifest itself. As Roland Barthes said, eroticism is a language, and like all languages, it needs grammar, style, fiction. Sex without context is merely a biological act. Sex with a script is an emotional experience. It's a striking memory. It's something she'll tell or hide for years. The problem is that modern men have forgotten how to tell stories. They're so focused on techniques, on ready-made phrases, on starting a conversation, that they've forgotten the power of building atmosphere. They've forgotten that what captivates isn't what you say, it's what you make her feel. And she needs to feel that there's something bigger behind that moment, that the dinner was special, that the series was symbolic, that the wine was different, even if all of that is just an excuse. That's the difference between the guy she uses and the guy she remembers. The first only wants the body, the second understands the soul. Even if, to access it, he needs to offer a lie sweet enough that her desire doesn't need to be ashamed of existing. It's no coincidence that history's greatest seducers were great storytellers. Casanova wrote letters, Don Juan staged displays of affection, Mata Hari seduced with exotic narratives. Everyone knew, a woman's body surrenders when her mind believes it's not being used, and whoever offers that belief, even if fictitious, becomes unforgettable. Therefore, stop trying to convince, stop being logical, leave the rational behind, and enter the symbolic. What she wants isn't your discourse of intention, it's your theater of suggestion. She wants to feel special. She wants to imagine it was different, that it wasn't just sex, but the consequence of something unique. And if you know how to paint that picture, she'll fall for it and surrender. Now, perhaps you're still afraid to use this, afraid of seeming false, afraid of deceiving. But I tell you clearly, deception is what the overly sincere man practices on himself. He pretends that truth is enough. He pretends that desire is linear. He pretends that the woman wants what she says she wants. And it is this self-deception that condemns him to loneliness. The right lie doesn't hurt, it liberates. Because it allows a woman to live what she wants without carrying the weight of appearing as what she fears. It protects, it welcomes. It packages desire in a socially acceptable package. And sex, within that package, transforms from a shameful act into a memorable experience. The philosopher Kierkegaard said, "Life can only be understood backward, but it must be lived forward." And that's exactly what a woman does. She needs to look at the moment as something that happened, and only then can she live it without judging herself. And you, man who wants to be remembered, need to create that moment intentionally, even pretending it was unintentional. And now that you know this, you have two choices. The first is to continue believing that being sincere, direct, and transparent will lead you to a woman's heart, or to her bed. The second is to understand that the path to her passes through a stage, and on that stage you are the screenwriter, the director, and the lead actor. And the most effective script is the one she wants to believe, even knowing it's all staged. But be careful, the theater only works if there's talent, if the atmosphere is real, if the dish is truly good, if the wine is truly special, if the gaze truly provokes. Because symbolic lies only work when supported by genuine gestures. That's where the paradox lies. The dish is just an excuse, but it has to be done with intention. The invitation is just a pretext, but it has to come with confidence. The story is just scenery, but the desire has to be real. And when all of this aligns, she lies on your chest, saying, "I don't even know how it happened." And you know, because you're the one who wrote the script.